Hello and welcome to History Classes. This is an SLET history course, and we are today starting lesson number 1, Sources of Early History of Assam. So, what are sources? Sources are the clues or evidences that has been left behind by the civilizations or societies before us. Without sources, there will be no history writing. There cannot be. A historian exists because sources do. So, what does these sources look like? What are they? What does historians look for to write history? Sources are nothing but anything and everything that the bygone society or the civilization had ever produced, created, or used during their lifetime. Okay. So, similarly, for studying Assam, the history of Assam, we have historians have to deal with sources, and through the dealing of these sources, the history of Assam has been constructed or written. So, today the point of discussion is about what are the types or kinds of sources that has been found regarding the ancient history of Assam that has been utilized to reconstruct or write the history of Assam. So, before 14th century CE, there are no sources available as regards to Assam's history. Therefore, the early or ancient history of Assam is generally divided into two periods or divisions, we can say mythical and ancient. Mythical, the word mythical comes from the word myth. Okay, it means it can be true, it can be false. There is uh, nothing substantial, uh, no substantial clue or evidence that can prove these accounts to be true. While the ancient period, the historians have found substantial evidences, sources, or clues to write the history of Assam. Okay. So, before 4th century, whatever the list of kings we have of Assam or whatever information is there is all mythical, can be said mythical. The names of the kings, even the names of the place can be mythical, or even the events described can be mythical. But in ancient, it can be with surety be said that it is all true. But studying mythical accounts is also important in history, in relation to history, because although they do not give us the accurate lists of king, places, or events, they does give us the glimpse of the society, their thought processes, uh, maybe probably discussing what they wore, what they ate. Okay, this gives us an idea that what kind of society it was. Okay, so that becomes an important part of studying the society in that matter. Even the economy can be studied through mythical sources. Okay, yeah. So, we will be dealing with ancient Assam. Okay, so sources for ancient Assam, we have literary sources, epigraphic, numismatic, and archaeological. So these are the important sources for ancient Assam. Today we will be dealing with literary sources. In context of ancient history of Assam, literary sources have been divided into two, indigenous and foreign. As the name suggests, indigenous sources written in India or Assam, okay, produced in India or Assam. So Mahabharat, Harivamsha and Puranas, they have mentioned mythical kings like Naraka, Bhagadatta and Vajradatta, okay. So these what I was talking about, the mythical era, mythical works. Kalika Purana, composed in 10th and 11th century, which is a much later date, okay, has legend of Naraka, mentions boundaries of Pragjyotisha and Kamrupa. So although it is a mythical account, it speaks about the Naraka legend, but it is valuable source because we come to know that Pragjyotisha Kamrupa was there. So more concrete evidence comes from Banabhatta's Harsha Charitra. Okay, Harsha was a king, as we all know, of North India, and Banabhatta was his court poet. So there is a popular story. We all know that Bhaskara Varman, ruler of Kamrupa, then sought friendship of Harsha. Okay. So another indigenous sources are Hevajra Tantra. It mentions Kamrupa as Shakti Peeth. It is a work of 8th century. Then there are other tantric work. Yogi Tantra, it mentions Coach King Vishwa Simha. So the names of Coach King, Bhaskara Varman are also found in different sources. So sources is not about getting one source and confirming that the information is true. In history, the process of history writing involves corroborating the sources. So if Yogini Tantra has mentioned Coach King Vishwa Simha, for example, so what historian will do to confirm the veracity of this claim? Historian will look for archaeological evidences, epigraphical evidence, even other literary sources also, numismatics, right? So through this, if um, if the correlation is found, if the corroboration is found, then a historian establishes that yes, forge king named Vishwasimha was there. Okay. There is one work called Hari Vara Samvada. It is a fabricated work. Okay. It has been described in the book in length. H.K. Bor Pujari's book. Now let us see briefly about the foreign sources. So Greek works mention Kirata people. Okay, we will in next chapters we will come to know who were the Kiratas. Okay, they are original inhabitants of the Kamrup Rajyotish region. Okay, and Siyuki, written by a Chinese pilgrim traveler Huan Sang, who visited India, and during his visit he also visited Kamrupa then, and he mentions about Kamrupa. Okay, and the kind of gifts he got from King Bhaskara Varma at that time. So this is also an important work corroborating that King Bhaskara Varma was also there because we find mention of King Bhaskara Varma in Banabhatta's Harsha Charitra, and this is corroborated by fact that Huan Sang also mentions him in Siyuki, and in fact he visited Kamrupa. Okay. So there was also an Arab merchant called Suleiman. He also mentions about Kamrupa, although it is less likely that he visited Kamrupa. He might have heard about from people around him. Then there is Persian work. Hudud al-Alam also mentions about Kamrupa. Al-Burni's Tariqul Hind mentions about Kamrupa. The Tabaqat-e-Nasiri by Minasuddin gives the account of Muhammad Ibn expedition against Tibet through Kamrupa. So Muhammad Ibn wanted to go to Tibet or invade Tibet, and he thought that going through Kamrupa would be the finest route. Okay, so in that context, name of Kamrupa or mention of Kamrupa is found in this book. So this book belongs to the um, medieval time period, but still it has been mentioned here to corroborate that Kamrupa still existed till medieval century. Okay, The account of invasion of Kamrupa by Ikhtiyaruddin Uzbek Tugril Khan. So these Muslim writers mention Kamrup as Kamrut, Kamru, or Kamru. Okay. So why should we mention about this? Because it is important. We know that Kingdom of Kamrupa was there. It has been verified, and it's not just in the myth. And also probably, most probably, there is a mention because it was an important kingdom, strategically located, and maybe there was a kind of trade between the people and many other relations or activities between rest of India and Kingdom of Kamrupa. Okay. So this was a brief overview regarding the sources of early history of Assam. Today we discussed briefly, looked into the brief account of literary sources. Okay, in the next class we will discuss epigraphic sources, very important for the exam point of view. Thank you and have a nice day.